G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 31st of July 2025. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Bow Games, Into the Ozmound, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire. The month's coming to an end, and hey, I hate to tell you, I told you so, but I will soon. First, I'd like to thank the supporters who helped make this channel possible and invite you to join them through the links in my link tree. You can support the channel by buying my books, buying my merch, and of course joining my Patreons. All the links are in my link tree. Alright, so Trump, 8 more days. Officially, unofficially it's more like 6. Given the news cycle, but I would say after the first week of August we'll see Trump's announcements and what dates the various tariffs will take effect. And Russia, of course, is claiming that it is immune to US sanctions. Well, actually it's been immune to European sanctions, but not US sanctions. Now, the US may not buy that much from Russia. That is a fact. But what they have done is, see, when Europe sanctioned Russia, Russia pivoted to India. But India and China, sorry. But that little bit extra that goes to America and South America and all that stuff that goes through companies and countries more aligned to the US than the Europeans are. Trust me, the Europeans pay lip service to everything. Well, you know, right? A lot of companies busted sanctions by going through third parties and reselling back to Europe. But when US sanctions kicked in, those companies stopped doing that. And the Europeans, well, they're now cut off and now dependent on the US. Hey, but you know, fact is, Europe is a vassal state. I like to think that they're going to be so strong and independent. But of course, their leadership lack the mental acuity of, well, basically a leader. They are followers. They are ideologically bound. And you cannot be a good leader if you're ideologically bound. But see, weak people like ideology because it locks people into a voting pattern instead of thinking. And emotional people hate thinking. It hurts their little brains because they want their dopamine from having their hissy fits. You know, liberals, if you really love your emotions, you should vote Republican so you can be angry every day. Ah! Alright, so Europe has responded positive to Ukraine Parliament passing anti-corruption laws that are basically the anti-corruption laws that Zelensky removed, except they still give Zelensky power over the agencies, but not automatic power over the agencies. He still has to go through the courts, so it's just a convoluted way of Zelensky having his thumb on the scale without looking like he has the thumb on his scale. Basically, he's trying to rewrite all the laws of Ukraine to make himself look more important, to make him look like he's doing something. But what he does, he's passing laws that he's already scrapped, just so he looks like he's doing something. Just to put his name in the books. That's the kind of weak people that basically run countries into the ground. Because emotionally damaged children keep voting for this emotionally damaged man-child. Because politics, because weak people are lazy and don't want to think. Was this a food warehouse? Who knows? Ukraine lies. And that fire, well, that's a chemical fire, and you know it. Of course, Ukraine complains about Russian forces shelling and Russian forces drones, but never talk about their own and the damage that Ukraine does. So Russia's sanctioning people with anti-Russian sentiment, and Italy's upset that Russia has included Italy's president for anti-Russian sentiment. Yeah, Russia's actually starting to sanction people, which may not account to much, but in the world of imagination, politicians hate it when they're called out. They really do. See, weak people love being loved. That's why they want to appeal to the masses instead of doing the right thing. So here's Zelensky again trying to make himself look important by saying that I discussed this with President Trump and he's doing everything I agreed to. Yeah. Bullshit, Zelensky. You're a piece of shit, making yourself look important yet again. Now, Ukraine has been hit by something that they can blame, that has nothing to do with the Russian invasion and everything to do with the selfish nature of Ukrainian officials. They claim that they can't use pest control methods near the front line and there's a massive locust invasion. Ukraine could have done something, like, accept the ceasefire deal. It's always Russia's fault. That's the problem. And the media is too stupid or too cowardly to point that out because they want their access. And that's the problem with the world, isn't it? All these countries blocking access to the media. So the media complies with the propaganda of the state, whether it be China, Ukraine, even Russia. But mostly, look at the UK. Keir Starmer claiming that he does not censor adults, and then was forced to admit that they're going to censor adults and adult material because they claim it's to save the children. That's all. It's all virtue signaling to make up for 20 years of ignoring grooming gangs and not deporting and not deporting the invaders because Saudi Arabia pays them under the table millions of dollars. You don't have to believe me. Look up Wahhabism. Alright, so Kiev was hit with drones, possibly a missile. You never know the facts. Russia has resumed fighting in the north. Not much has come of that. Still fighting at Kupiansk. Sorry, it's not Kupiansk. It's Kupiansk. It's Kupiansk. It's actually Kupiansk, Volodymyr. It's several towns. It's a cluster. But as you can see, there's renewed fighting along the different lines in the front. Now, north of Chavashar, there's virtually no movement. But today, this is announced by the Russian ministry and confirmed by many in the Ukrainian media that Chavashar, a few hours ago, has fallen and that the Ukrainians have retreated to Mykolaiivka. While researching, the Ukrainian article, of course, turned into a 404 page. I'm sick of it, but with the centre of the town and most of this devastated, the Ukrainians were forced to retreat overnight. They didn't say whether or not it was from a unsuccessful attempt to dislodge the Russians or what, but apparently there was basically a charge, and we'll get to that soon. But there you go. It actually started in the afternoon, and fighting went well into the evening. Sometime a few hours ago, the Ukrainians admitted that Chavez Yar has fallen without any further explanation. They revise their stories all the time. But fighting has renewed here as well, with some parts of the with some advances by the Russians. Now, don't have much to say about the rest, but it does look like, I told you so, that they're going to surround this town. This will soon fall. They'll soon be in a crucible. This will extend up. Right now, the Ukrainians are desperate to keep this road and this road open. That's why there's troops along here, troop massing. But eventually it'll weaken their lines. But I think it looks like Russia's going to close the gap here instead of up here. It would probably make sense. But then again, could be a misdirect, and they go through here and down through here. You never know. You do not know what the Russians are thinking. When you think you figure them out, which I thought I had, they change tactics. But they have advanced in many places. Like I said, they've taken places, even though they're still Ukrainians fighting and still, but they are all cut off. They're just fighting because they're too stupid to realise that, they think for every dead Russian comrade is a nail in the freedom of Russia. It's a nail in their Russian coffin. Yeah, so their own lives are lost, which is the nail in Ukraine's coffin. You look at ancient war. They didn't sacrifice more than 10% of their population because they realised that even if you lose now, you don't know what the future holds. These empires will crumble, always crumble. All empires crumble. It's the ego of man to think that the empires they build today are going to last. So, officially it's the Rada that returned the independence to the anti-corruption bodies, but it was a bill submitted by Zelensky just to put his name on stuff, okay, to make it look like he's the president, that he's doing something. When in reality, he's just putting back laws that he removed so he can put his name on them. But in the process of putting his name on them, there's still the oversight of the president still built into these laws. It's just, you've been deceived, basically, that yes, they're independent until he decides they're not. So Chavez Yar was a critical logistics hub in the area. Well, it was being the key word. For this line, okay, it was the logistics hub for this line, the first Zelensky line, which fell. Okay, Donetsk and all this has fallen. Chavez Yar was a key hub in this defence hub. it lost its importance a long time ago. It was this hub here. It lost its importance when all this fell. But it was still a key fortress. But as you can see, it's mostly devastated. Now, the Russians apparently conducted a massive strike on the Ukrainian defence industry, which has not been reported on. Now, Chevchyov was widely reported as Ukrainian's best fortified position. Now, it's one of. It was situated on an elevated ground. It was bisected by a canal, which makes crossing the town difficult by head. Yep. And they could have, and was, an artillery base. Actually, Kiev did report the loss of the city, but not at the time it fell. This was earlier today. Now, remember, a lot of these articles were 4 or 5 hours old. Okay, began in April after the fall of Atomos, known as Bakhmut in Ukraine. Rugged terrain, etc., ponds, and of course, never mind the concrete bunkers and underground tunnels. But yeah, as I've reported, there is likely to have been street fighting that went unreported. But as a testament to how old the fighting is, remember, this city was already shelled and attacked by Ukraine over 10 years ago. A lot of the damage to the city was actually before the Russian invasion, when the Ukrainian army attacked to secure the city from Ukrainian terrorists, i.e. protesters against the illegal coup. Although technically all coups are illegal unless you win. Now, I don't know if this is Russia reaching out to the United States or Britain as a tacit approval, but the United States and Britain have endorsed Ukraine's former commander. Zelensky is the replacement for Zelensky, seeing him as less corrupt and less polarizing. Now, this comes via Switzerland, as again, this is Russia acknowledging that the message has been received and they are favourable to Zelensky replacing Zelensky for the peace talks. Remember, folks, diplomacy is often conducted publicly through news articles. And intelligence agencies spend days, sometimes weeks, poring over newspapers, putting together articles in response to previous articles. If you didn't know that most of the news is rewritten by intelligence agency, I've got a jab to sell you. Pretty cheap. So the last part is we'll watch the final moments of Chevchyov, where you actually get to see what an assault looks like. Obviously, this is Airborne Command, watching through drones, the results of the artillery barrage. This is the outskirts of, this is a big screen projection, the outskirts of Ukraine, of Chevchyov. The final Ukrainians are making their final stand and the Russians are basically clearing out the foxholes, firing drones and remote missiles into them. It's all done by remote. There's some canisters dropped, as you can see, but others, heavy artillery in the industrial area where the Ukrainian army was held up. Here again, foxholes being cleared. one drone operator can kill hundreds per day in an intense battle. What aerial battle? Because Ukraine has very little air defences in the front line, in the forward areas. And if the left really cared about Ukraine, they wouldn't be screaming for more war, they'd be screaming for peace. And this goes all the way back to the Vietnam War. The left were never interested in peace, they're only interested in power. They don't care about the lives lost because it doesn't affect them. It's not their family, it's not even their friends, heck, it's not even their political allies. They only care because they play on your heartstrings. They feed the paranoia against Russia. Russia's not the threat. The threat's China. And by warring with Russia, you are inviting a Chinese invasion. But that's what the left want. So thank you for listening. Sorry, thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and please support the channel. You can support me on Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, or in my profile. Then again, you can just scan the QR code on the screen. All my links in one handy place, not sponsored. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.